familiarize yourself with where Yurok is. We're the largest tribe in California. We are up in the northwest corner, up in the Redwood Forest. The Yurok people have resided along the lower 48 miles or so of the Klamath River and along the coast, about 50 or so miles of the California coastline and the beautiful Redwood Forest. We been here for thousands of years, but in about 1855, I think we had our reservation was made by executive order. We retained those lands. We've lost some of our connection to the coastal people, but downriver we call ourselves Pulikla. Is Yurok is actually a upriver tribes word for our people, but we call ourselves Pulikla, and Nur is coastal Yurok. But we are it's very rural, so we subsistence fishermen, hunters, gatherers, we're world-renowned basket weavers.
This is such a wonderful project, and I think I want to kind of give a little context here about environmental injustice, and this is an environmental justice project, and how this project came to be collaboratively. So you'll probably are familiar with environmental justice, fair treatment, meaningful involvement, especially regarding environmental laws, regulations, and policies. And there's the procedural and the distributive aspect, so that there should be equal distribution of benefits and harms, and equal opportunity to participate in environmental decision making that affects people's health. Indigenous environmental justice is distinct, as it's attentive to this long history of settler colonialism, theft of land, settler pollution of land, um, as a broader definition of environmental injustice. And part of that injustice is contamination. So the projects that we're talking with are trying to address this history of indigenous environmental justice and rural environmental justice. As Joe mentioned, this is a really remote area. People are spread out on a large landscape and also live directly from and with that landscape. So there are direct pathways of exposure that are different from exposure pathways that affect urban populations. And these are culturally specific exposure pathways.
Partly is to give my hats off to Beth Rose because she's been a great partner to us for many years. So we've worked on many research projects. This is one of many that we worked collaborated together on. And so we have different exposures to indigenous people because we're intimately connected to our lands every day. So we're on the river almost every day. We're out in the forest every day. And we subside off our traditional foods the way that we have for thousands of years. We've been here for thousands of years, and we hope to be here for thousands of years more. So we're very stringent and very cognizant of all these impacts, and we patrol them and try to enforce and utilize our sovereignty to protect ourselves.
Part of the Superfund project, we collectively attended the National Superfund Research conferences annually. So there'd be both UC Davis and Yurok Tribe Environmental Department representatives who would go and listen to different presentations that dealt with contaminants and health impacts, and identifying contaminants and their impacts. And one of the presenters talked about a wristband project that was happening between Oregon State University and a nation in Washington. And the Yurok tribe members who attended, the staff who attended, suggested that this be the next step in our project, to look at individual levels of exposure and use the wristbands as passive sampling devices. We've had a wonderful grad student researcher who is working on her doctorate in public health sciences. I wanted to highlight her here because she has been so central to this work in terms of developing project protocols, outreach materials. We meet regularly with Joe and his staff. She's also been doing the wristband analysis and developing the report back materials. So we've been really blessed to have her on staff. So this shows our different roles and responsibilities on the UC Davis and Yurok Tribe Environmental Department sides. So you can see that we collectively, drafted project documents and began outreach, but it was really Yurok Tribe Environmental Department that was out in the community talking with people, as Joe was saying, like those nuances of communication and relationships. White had also trained people in how to wear the wristbands and keep track of their activities. And we in turn provided training on the protocol for the wristbands. we're analyzing the samples, et cetera. You can see this overlay. But again, I think it's just really powerful the way some of the information just lives with YTED and never comes to campus. Again, we went through the data collection already. We're finishing the sample analysis, confirming the chemicals, and now developing the individual result reports, meeting regularly to go over those. They will have the chemicals identified, sources, and health effects. And then our first real strong near-term goal is completing these individual report backs. Then we'll collate the information to give back to the tribe with kind of an overview. This project for me has been a highlight in my work because the tribe requested it, because it's such an important area of inquiry around exposure.
I think that's the big thing is mutual respect and dialogue. It's not a one-off like, oh, we saw you, months ago or whatever. It's like we continually have regular calls all the time. And so I think it's having that relationship and building that trust with each other is really, really important. And that takes time. It's not something that just happens right away. So, but I think that was the biggest thing. I think, like as Beth Rose mentioned, was having the opportunity, the tribe asked her. And I think it was because we had previous projects that we could trust her and we valued her input and we knew that we would get something great from it. I mean, as we move through, I mean, I anticipate we're always thinking of new projects to do as well. Email, hey, how about this? It doesn't work out now. Hey, might work out next year or 2 years, 3 years from now, whatever. But it's a relationship, and so once you have that, then you can go back multiple times later on. And then one other thing with Beth Rose is that she's always been really, really respectful, but also it's really helpful too that she always says like, how can I contribute something to your tribe? How can I help? So she always has like offers, funding or assistance, or, she says, hey, my institution has resources. How can I open those up to you to help? And so she's always reciprocal. She always gives back instead of just take, take, take. And so often that can add up. Sometimes I have some researchers that I may work with on something, and hey, I get an email all the time. Like, can you, comment on this document or this report? And then I was like, after a while, these things starts to stack up and it takes some time. And so one little ask from one person, you may not think it's much, but I may be getting 10 emails from different 10 people saying that one ask. So my point being is that Beth Rose has always been giving with her relationship as well. And so that's very refreshing, and thank you. And she's always been really respectful to us and always really, it's been a pleasure. So.
In terms of support, I think the flexibility on time is important because these projects take time, and also diversity of support for both researchers on campus to be able to focus on the analysis and to be able to bring on really great GSRs like Tamara, and also support in the community for all the different roles that YTED is playing, support for the participants participating in the project. It's really, I think, a different type of research project that's much more long-term relationship based and requires a diversity of support and flexibility in time. I feel really grateful to be in the Department of Native American Studies because built into the mission of the department is, respectful collaboration, centering Indigenous knowledge systems and approaches, and doing work that's useful for people and communities. So that's built in. Whereas I think sometimes in other departments, there might be an overemphasis on perhaps like the basic science rather than its relationship to living communities and or people's different perspectives on ways of knowing and interacting with environments. So I think being an NAS has provided a really supportive atmosphere for this type of work.
The big thing is just data sovereignty. That's a really emergent field. And just having Beth Rose being really cognizant of that and being very, very very aware of it and being on point all the time. Like we haven't luckily had any issues that I'm aware of with the university requesting information that maybe the tribe wouldn't want to share anyway. But I know that she always has our back in that she's guarding our data in that way. And so we do have things that can be shared, but there are some things that are not shareable. And so protect our data is through contracting, because that's one legal hook that we have. And so often sometimes we have these obscure projects that we have to fit into a contract just because of that legal protection to make sure that we have that data protection, data, basically data sovereignty. But what's shareable, what's not shareable, what will be deliverable, what's retains in the tribe. And so that's one way the best way that we've figured out is contracting on the tribe's end anyway. But yeah, in academics, I mean, it's still, somewhat within the academic field, it's still fairly, it's still a new process and new idea in a sense of data sovereignty. So I don't know any great examples of like, yeah, that's exactly what everybody should do. It's still evolving, but definitely needed.